switching gears a little bit, and maybe I'll ask up front, how many here in the room are in an academic, university-affiliated, or university place? Okay, so a number of people. All right, so I just over a year ago, I joined Mayo Clinic, and I was really, this is actually, as I put the slides together, actually I learned a lot, so that's the reason I was interested in talking about this, because after joining Mayo, I learned that Mayo is one of the institutions that actually considers if you use social media wisely, you can use this actually for your academic ranking in a certain way. So I wanted to share a little bit of those tips of how some institutions have already embraced social media for really a digital social media scholarship and academic ranking. And I think, as all of you well know, there's three typical ways that you can do scholarly activities, right? Either you're a great clinician, you're a great teacher, you have residents, fellows, trainees, or you're doing, you're publishing a lot of original articles and research. And this has been really, there are three standard ways that you can do this. And historically, there's been traditional metrics of how you can keep track of all these metrics and make sure that you're very successful. So if you're a great clinician, let's say, for example, you're very productive, people will say, oh, look at all these RBUs or procedures. Let's say you're a great researcher and writing a lot. People will look at the number of publications, citations. Let's say you're educating at your institution, but also nationally and internationally. People would look at the number of, speaking invitations, and lectures and grand rounds. And for research, they will look at grants or you're in committees. So these are the traditional metrics. So now in 2018, as Chadi and Sheila have introduced to the topic, there's a number of other ways that all these things are happening through social media. Sheila already talked about this, so I won't go into detail, but we think that social media is only Twitter, right? And it's more than Twitter, right? It is really websites, applications that you use to create, share, and participate. So it is more than Twitter. And in this number of social media tools, you can use it in different ways, but I'm particularly going to focus on how you can use this in a scholarly activity for the purpose of education. And I think all of you probably do this, right? These are just some few examples that I put together for the slides. I think all of us, I for sure go regularly to Manos Rilakis' YouTube channel. It is a phenomenal channel with hundreds of videos on lectures on how to do, let's say, bifurcation PCI, how to do CTO. This would have traditionally not been recognized as a worthy scholarly activity, even though it got more tractions, more videos, more visibility than speaking to a small room with 100 people. So there are blogs in the bottom. You can see here, this is actually one of my good friends, Steve Smith from Minneapolis. He has an ECG website. He goes on 20, 30 minute short videos of how to describe ECG. So you can do videos, you can do blogs, there are podcasts. And recently, you probably saw Michael, you might have seen or not, Michael Gibson has the Wikidoc website, but recently they also created a tweet book that you can post peer-reviewed cases for free in a website. So my point being is there's all these other ways that require effort, and they are probably actually have more visibility than traditional methods. And if at certain institutions, this wouldn't count. This is not your traditional publication or ground rounds invitation. And if you think, for example, I'm just going to touch base on Life in the Fast Lane. Best to my understanding, Life in the Fast Lane, which I for sure have visited a number of times for ECG criteria when I want to quickly look it up in Google, and it will be usually your first or second response. Life in the Fast Lane, best to my understanding, it's a website that is run by 10 guys in Australia, and it has more visits than many of the major journals on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. So this journal have this whole machine of people working, and these 10 guys in Australia have more visits for free education. So that's really where a lot of the future it's going, for free access and open education. So again, there's the traditional model, that it's the traditional model. If I'm invited to a conference, then that's going to give me prestige, and you're speaking, but you're speaking to a small number of people, and there's really limited number of views. And you guys tell me at the end of the lecture, you can approach me, your lecture really sucked, or it was good, you get no feedback, right? You didn't know how you do. But if I post it on social media, look at, for example, at one of Manos Rilakis' websites, one of his lectures. This is a video that he has, 10 minutes, on how to do a DK crush. It has more than 15,000 views. It has comments that people can provide feedback. So it has more reach, more impact. It's widely available, but usual academic institutions would say this doesn't count. it counts more if you talk to 20 people in a conference. So it's really something that we should think about. And if, I mean, just think about this video, over 15,000 views. I think we would need like, I don't know what, over 20 CVIs to reach the same impact. So the same thing, it goes for research, right? So here, again, the traditional format of, you're invited. This is a late-breaking clinical trial. You're speaking to a few hundreds people. Think about, for example, the Orbita effect, just a few months ago, and how that just was probably the most discussed trial in the history of probably the world. Like, this was just so much traction, the amplification. Like, I can think of myself, like when I started going to conference a few years ago, and you would see a principal investigator present the late-breaking clinical trial, like you would attend, but you really couldn't approach this big-time investigator and ask him questions about the design or why did you do this. It was hard. It was like, they're over there. Now, in 2018, I think Orbita has set an example that if you're either the lead contributor or the principal investigator and you participate in social media, you can amplify your message and you can get right there to the ground and answer questions and clarify confusions. So again, I think there's been great papers on that by Bobby Ye in Circulation, and there's this other very nice paper that just came in the New England Journal of Medicine about social media and the advancement of women physicians. So women, unfortunately, it's been tough. They don't get invited to speak. They don't get invited to be on panels. They don't get invited to be on even though they're half experts, to be on papers. So, I'm not going to wait for the invitation. I'm going to have my voice in social media, and I'm going to share what I'm an expert on. I'm going to share my research. So it can be a great tool to have academic advancement. Same regard, it's this issue about academic scholarly impact and alternative metrics. So again, the traditional score, if I go and I say like, hey, I want to go to associate professor, people would say like, oh, but you publish in this BC journal and you only have 2 citations. But the reality is that how does that matter in the day of alternative metrics in 2018? So this is just an example of, for example, of Jack. We recently put this paper out, and I think it has like 3 citations. But when I look at alternative metrics, that now some journals are reporting that, the paper has been seen by 325,000 people. So shouldn't that matter more than having 3 citations? So in any case, just think about these things as we're moving forward into how these things will impact in your scholarly activities and how you move forward in academia. And again, this is just to the left, for example, just how the JACC journals now will, rather than citations, to the right, and this is actually in the main page, you can see the journals that have the most engagement. This doesn't necessarily mean that the paper is good or bad. It just means that there was a lot of engagement. So I think both Sheila and Chadi have talked about this.
Yader, can I just...
Yes, go ahead,
please. To the previous slide.
Yes.
So the all metric, for example, in 2017 was the highest all metric, I think, few million, was Barack Obama paper in JAMA about talking about the healthcare platform, and just to give you a perspective. And this is all metric is a collection of multiple things. How many clicks, how many downloads of the PDF, how many tweets, shares on different platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tableau, or whatever the other platforms are. So put it all together and give you a score. There's one paper showed that a paper published in Neurointervention showing the higher all metric, the higher readership and citation. So going back to Yader's point is although traditionally we go by citation and what's your traditional advancement for your academic career, but this can improve your citation numbers. So it's a snowball effect. The more people you share it yourself, people will like it, they will share it again, they will go to the website, they will visit it more, and you have thousands and thousands of people visiting and downloading and sharing it again, and you eventually will have more citation. So it is not 100% guaranteed with increased citation, but in one paper from your intervention, they prove that this does improve citation.
I think that's a great point. And rather than your paper sitting in some forgotten website and only your friends, family, and colleagues of the co-authors clicking on the paper, if you go in the paper, you have a Twitter account, for example, and you get behind it and you explain what you actually did, that will get a lot more traction than not doing that. So I think, people have already talked about this, but I think when you think, like, for example, the beginning of this session, we're talking a lot about, I think, non-quantifiable benefits of social media. So I think those are definitely benefits, but they're not rewardable, right? But there's for sure benefits. So you can network, you can collaborate, there's all this case-based learning, and we can all learn tricks, and you can engage in academic discussions, and you can just observe and keep up with what's the latest, hottest research. But there are ways that you can use social media in a quantifiable or rewardable way. So let's say, for example, you create a website like what Dr. Michael Gibson did with Wikidoc, and let's say I'm going to create this free access website. I'm going to give the opportunity that feedback can be offered. I'm going to put chapters, education for free. You're the editor-in-chief of that website. That is a quantifiable social media use that you can actually track visits, how often people were clicking on it, and so on. And the reality is that us in cardiology, we are just getting started. I think we really have to look up to what emergency physicians and intensivists have done. I don't know if you guys have looked into that, but particularly the ER community, they have dozens of amazing blogs and podcasts and videocasts. Like to me, for example, when I have to remember something about an EKG, I'm not like going to the EKG book. I'm Googling and I'm going to Life in the Fast Lane. I'm going to Smith's ECG blog. And these people have really quantifiable, great websites with clear goals, metrics, and very nice content. So again, you can do this blog, podcast, video, or vodcast, and you can be manage this account. So I asked this before the conference related to this. I will say I'll be speaking at CVI today, and does your institution consider social media activities, such as what many of these guys are doing? And it takes a lot of work, right? Blogs, podcasts, and so on in academic promotion. And does your institution says this has any value? And the great majority of respondents says like it has no value. And actually many people responded what I just told you, that what matters is your peer-reviewed publication, your presentation at a national conference, being in a committee. Having this very nice website for free with 100,000 views doesn't count. So I'm sure some institutions are thinking about this, but Mayo in 2016, actually, so it's been now a couple of years, they formally adopted social media as a metric for academic rank. It's not yet high or medium impact, but it's counted. So that's already an achievement, right? So you would say like, well, does tweeting every now and then counts as an activity? That's not really it, right? They want clear things that you develop, that have a goal, that have an objective, that you can track the quality, that people can provide feedback, and that there's some sort of way that it can be quantified. And that are academic blogs, podcasts, posts, articles and interviews, editor-in-chief, chief contents, or manager of a social media network. And as you can see, it gets, at least, it's low impact, but it has value. It has a value. If you're a great doctor, you get RVU. If you're a great researcher and you're publishing, you get papers and citations. If you're a great educator, you get invited. But if you're active in social media and that's your passion, if you do it the right way, you will also get value for what you're doing.
Can I make a comment on the previous
Go ahead.
slide? Number one, I don't think we use CD-ROMs anymore and videotapes, but probably still there in every hospital. I agree with you. In our hospital, the same thing.
Which one?
The videotapes and CD-ROMs.
Yes, yes.
But as they showing in the impact file in yellow, Yader showing there, it will allude to citation, which is a medium impact. So it's a snowball effect. The more you have, the more you publish yourself. And people will take it, no, I don't want to be bragging about myself. You're not bragging. If you have a good paper, you have a good textbook, put it out. Why not? You increase, it's not a revenue, it's not going to bring you more money. But I think, take it in a way, you are sharing knowledge. You worked so hard on this paper, you worked so hard on this blog or article or textbook or book chapter, just share it. Why just people start reading it? Again, within the limitation of the copyright and what else?
So let's say, again, I think it's important that everybody defines what their passion is. And we were talking about how busy it is for everybody to do everything. So, right, so it would be hard for you to say, I'm going to run this trial, and I'm going to be the principal investigator, and I'm going to scrap in this 4-hour CTO, and I'm going to have a full-day clinic, and by the way, I'm going to run a website. So it's hard to do everything. But let's say you say, I really want to focus on social media, and I want to create material, and I want this to be quantified, and I want this to have value. So it wouldn't be just about just random posts on Facebooks or in tweets. It would be about creating a clear portfolio. And this is actually from a lot of what I'm speaking about. It's about work from Daniel Carvera. I'll show a slide at the end. He has like 2 or 3 peer-reviewed publications with clear details of how you actually go about this and make it work. So these are just a summary of what he says. You can't be talking about everything. You have to choose a niche. Let's say it's hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. That's it. I'm going to talk about this. What is going to be my goal? You have to define, do I want to educate patients? Do I want to educate my peers? Who do I want to educate, okay? So you have to define an audience. Is this for students, for patients, for residents? Who is this for? Then it would probably be hard starting off unless you have some sort of a team to be in all platforms. It would be hard to have a website and YouTube and I have a blog and I'm doing videos and I'm tweeting. You have to say, hey, like for example, like what Manos Brilakis does. I have videos in YouTube. That's it. I've talked to him about Twitter. He created an account, but I think he's posted like 5 times. But he has a very active YouTube account, and he posts videos all the time, right? So you have to choose a platform. Then you have to track and report your metrics because you want to show this quality to whoever wants to value your hard work. So you have to say this had this number about visits, and I can say the number of metrics, same as citations. The other thing is that in order for social media to have an academic impact, needs to be original. It can't be the same tweet and it can't be all the radial first work that Sheila did. It needs to be original work for it to be actually recognized. And I need to be archived. I need to say like this were the tweets or this was the work that I did and this is how I disseminated. Something that was very important and as I was reviewing some of these papers and work is like there needs to be an ability to provide comment, feedback, and generate discussion. So that's the way in which social media sort of reciprocates like the peer-reviewed process. So in the peer review process, you publish a traditional paper, it goes to review for 2 or 3 guys, and they tell you, hey, this is good or bad, fix this, right? So if you're going to use social media in an academic sort of way, you need to have a feedback sort of loop. And that's where Twitter or YouTube website in the comments or in a blog where people can tell you, hey, like, I disagree, that's not how I would do this, or change that, and you create an opportunity to continue to fix and improve whatever platform you're working on. And the other thing is, particularly if let's say you're in a university or university-affiliated place and you want to use this to actually go up on the ranks from assistant, associate, professor, it needs to align with your overall career development plan. So, if you are an operator and you do CTOs and that's what you do clinically and that's what you see in clinic, it would be completely divergent if you have a platform to run something completely different else. But if you have a website, for example, a blog, and you're explaining all these things and are posting such cases, that would be aligned. So it needs to be somehow aligned. There are people that can instruct about that. This is a slide that somebody shared with me. It says, it's all very well, making discoveries, saving lives, and improving the world, Roger. But your research is making barely any impact on social media. And this is lastly, resources that for people that are actually interested in this and looking deeper. This is just an overview. As I said, Daniel Carvera, he's an emergency physician at Mayo. He has really been the champion at Mayo about how to use this and helping push this in 2016 to be recognized. There's like this 40, 50-minute video webinar that he did in which he talks in detail about how to do all of this. And there's actually for people that are involved in education and really, really want to put this into some sort of a program, there's this paper by Cervino on social media and health professionals education that will take you actually step by step as to, let's say you wanted to bring this into your institution for it to count, to have value. So again, just something to think about it for the future. Thanks.
Great talk. Any question or comments?
I think social media is doing an excellent job at disseminating research, but I think it's time we move it a step further to create more collaboration in research. So what are the tips and tricks to, let's say, if you have an idea, approach a person from a different institution, or if you are early career or still in training, how to find a mentor at another institution using social media?
I'm going to take that.
Just send them a direct message on Twitter or just tag them. I mean, I think it depends on what level of question you're asking for that person. So if it's something more in-depth, the best way to do it is to do it privately because you probably don't want to feel there's a vulnerability with social media that we're really not talking about, but it's public, and so if you want to engage with somebody the same way you would write an email, just do a private direct message. And you'd be surprised, a lot of them are very approachable. Definitely the Columbia faculty that are very active, the CRF group, they're very approachable on Twitter through direct message. And a lot of directors of clinical programs are interested in what's going on, even if you are in a community-based setting or somewhere else.
And I think for collaboration, and I think it would be, I know people have done this like publicly, they tweet back and forth and let's do this and they collaborate. I think that's probably more that's less frequent. But I think where it really works is that, let's say you are passionate about something and you're tweeting and sharing messages and thoughts and tips about, I don't know, Battlefield Tavern, and this is what you do. This is what you tweet and comment. It will give you the platform to gain recognition for that. To then, let's say you're here at the meeting and I see you. Oh, look at that name. Oh, let's talk. I've seen all your tweets and stuff. So it will give you the platform. So that platform, I think people talk about how social media creates a democracy of academia, right? And it's that. Not many years ago, for you to get recognition, you had to be part of, of a club to be invited to lectures and panels and committees. Now, you can just do it whenever you want. Share your cases, share your posts, and gain recognition. And there are a lot of people that I know that were previously, that have gained a lot of national, international recognition because of their social media work, not only in cardiology but outside cardiology. So I think it creates a